Hello, and I'm back with the record. I'm going to do another timestamp. It's 1:49. I took a 10-minute break and break over. Yeah, I'm back. So one thing I have just learned is now you're going to see this part of the video is much better sound quality because I was not recording from my headphone mic, from my Logitech mic, but I was actually recording from my PC mic, which is why the sound was really not sounding that good. Right now I've fixed my settings here. Don't get distracted here. Like in the bottom you can see the settings. I'm only capturing pulse audio, which is, if you look at the settings, the pulse audio is actually from the Logitech. If I click here, you see it's from the Logitech mono. But and the mic aux is, I'm just putting it down because that was what was bringing the PC mic. Anyways, we've got everything sorted. We continue our work. So right now, just to recap, we were thinking of overall, in general, any sound you get, you want to compress it, you want to equalize it, compression, the volume level, you don't want it to be peaking up too high and too low, so you want sort of level, sound volume level, and then you want an EQ level, like frequency level, so that they don't clash with each other. Each sound don't clash with the other. You get the core of each sound, and you really boost that core and just get rid of or tone down the rest of it. And then we also learned that you can actually do this interesting process called subtractive equalization and then compression, which will allow you to not, like, those certain frequencies that peak up high would cause you to would cause the compression to lower everything down. So you don't want to do that. If certain frequency is really peaking up high, you can tone that down by subtractive EQ before you do the compression. And then after the compression, you can then do a proper EQ, which would be additive EQ. Now you want to boost the parts that you really want to boost. In between, they were using some gain because EQ does mean your volume lowers down. You don't want to do gain, and the compression has a gain anyways. They were using some new things. They, as in the mix, was using some new, in the mix channel was using some new plugins that I don't really have in FL Studio, which I will need to get. One of them is Nova, and the other is Wave Candy. Wave Candy is where you see the decibels. You can see the levels, but mainly it's Nova. Nova allows, it's different because it shows you as it's doing compression, it shows you the equalization in a visualization way as well. So you could also do EQ there, but I wouldn't do EQ in, he wasn't recommending to EQ in Nova, but you can at least tell, okay, this is the area which is causing all the peaks only. Like, so only that part is causing everything else to be compressed down. So if you just tone it down in EQ on the process before in the subtractive one, it'll be perfect. So that's sort of like a review. So I'm going to say review in my timestamp. By the way, if you wonder, I'm doing some timestamps here because this video is now more than 1 hour, and I'm sure some people are just not going to, if it's just 1 hour video, they're not going to watch it. Maybe watch it for 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then give up. But if there are those timestamps, they can be like, okay, I may be interested in that part. Click it and then give it. It's going to take me some effort of uploading the video, so I'm probably even going to make a video of that process of uploading. It's just, I like it this way. I like it when I'm explaining to people. I like when I'm hearing myself talk, I'm teaching, or some sort of a explanation to help people, and yeah, it'll help me. That's what matters. So at 1:53, if you're wondering what time am I talking about, this is 22nd March. And now it's 1:53. I started the video back in, like, more than an hour back, which was, look back at my time, 12:38 p.m. Now it's 1:53 p.m. And right now we're going to talk about, we're now focused on individual instruments, so guitar. So how do you do compression for guitar, right? Guitar compression. So I am going to look into subtractive EQ for clarity, acoustic guitar. So let's look at that. It's a 9-minute video, Let's see what I can learn from
Hello
that.
and welcome back to another video. I'm Michael, you're watching In The Mix, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a subtractive EQ technique to try and help you clean up your home recordings. In this tutorial I'm going to be demonstrating this technique on a mixing job we did for a client. His name is Luchito, and I'm pretty sure I've just pronounced that wrong. He's a very talented guitar player, but his recording was a little bit subpar, and the first job we had to do was just try to make it sound a little bit more professional so that it could fit in the mix. So I'm going to show you the stems before, then after, and then I'm going to take one of them and show you exactly what was done. Because of the room or the microphone or the equipment, there's lots of resonant frequencies and just boomy and boxy stuff going on in the low mids. This is sort of a two-part technique. The first one was removing noise from the stems, and I'll link a video just here showing how to remove the noise from the stems, but this video here is all about using EQ to subtract
noise from stem. Okay, this is good because I think I would need that. I think that so I'm just gonna quickly shift to the other video, how to use noise from stem. It's 5 minutes video. How about I get to that later? Yeah, because I don't want to distract you guys. I'll get to that in a moment, but I've opened that and I will definitely want to learn that.
Sort of boomy frequencies. Okay, so let's.
Because when I do recordings in a mic, it does have that boomy noise.
Monitor speakers to really hear the differences in this tutorial. So what are we looking at here? We've got a load of guitar stems. There's 5 at the top here in light green. These are the unedited stems, and the dark green ones at the bottom. These are the edited ones with the EQ and all of that stuff going on. So I'm going to sort of switch between the two and you'll hear differences, and the differences will mostly be focused in the low mids. The guitar playing itself is really, really nice to listen to, but you'll hear the difference between the two versions. One of them is just a lot more clear and a lot more focused. So let's start with the unedited ones and I'll switch between.
It's really amazing. The first one sounds like it's you're hearing it from a phone recording, right? The next one looks like production, so it's you can tell the difference. So it's subtractive EQ. Interesting. It's muddy. It's like without the EQ. It's
So I'm going to take it stem by stem. Each of the final edited stems will have a slightly different EQ profile, but the method of getting there is exactly the same. So on this channel I have a Fruity Parametric EQ2. Now I don't actually use this EQ when doing this technique. I prefer using other EQs where I can't necessarily see what's happening, because that way I really use my ears. But this one's really great for showing and demonstrating the technique. You will probably get better results with different EQs, but you can just test that out for yourself. Now the first thing I would do is get rid of low frequency rumble. This is really common. Basically, if I was to put a low pass just here, you'll be able to hear lots of this rumbling that's just not important. Because that information isn't really doing anything, I'm just going to set a gentle high pass filter, and I'm just going to have it rolling off everything below about maybe 70 or 80 hertz. Nothing too extreme there. It won't really change what it sounds like too much. And now this technique really gets going. What we do is we take these tokens in the middle and we raise them up a little bit, somewhere around about 6 dB or so. It can be anything like that, not too much. And you make the Q factor very narrow, so you make a very, very sharp point here. And what you do is you can hold control and you can sort of gently scroll from side to side. It gives you a lot of accuracy. And what we're listening for is when we play the guitar, we're just listening for frequencies that just sound really strange, like they're phasey, they're peaking, they just sound different. Everything will sound a little bit different when you put it through a sharp point like this, but some of the frequencies will really, really stick out. Usually when doing this technique, I would start around 400 hertz and go down, because it's that sort of 100 to 400 hertz region that's going to have the most problems usually. So let's get going, let's try this. I'm hearing one right here. Now this is 310, 312. It's going to be different for every sample, but this one just sounds really, there's just resonant frequency there. I'm going to just play it one more time and hopefully you'll be able to hear what's going on there. Just on that note there. It just sounds really, really loud and resonant and not right. So I'm going to take that 310 and I'm going to just take it down a few dB and see whether it fixes it. So it's a little bit better. Let's take a listen to that in context. So that note sounds a little bit better, but there's still loads of stuff going on there that we need to fix. So I'm going to take another little token, raise it to about 6 dB or so. Sometimes when people do this, they raise it too high and then everything sounds weird, so you end up poking lots and lots of holes. We don't want to make too many holes or this thing's going to sound a little bit crazy. Oh wow, so I'm going to take that down right away, about 230 or so. Make it a little bit wider because I could tell there was just more energy there. I'm going to take it down even further. So let's hear this again. So it's starting to sound more balanced, and I don't want to take too much of the sort of weight of the signal out. If I took too much here, it might just start sounding really, really thin. We're just looking to improve it. So what I'm going to do is play it with the effect on, and then I'm just going to mute the effect, and we'll see if it sounds okay. So to me, in these headphones, the one with the EQ sounds a lot better. Now you'll probably get better results with different EQs, but basically this technique is the same no matter what you're using. You can just raise one of these tokens up, give it a narrow Q, and you're just looking for stuff that, well, you're not looking, you're listening for things that just sound odd. And then when you identify something that sounds wrong, you're just trying to reduce it, but I'm not trying to reduce too much. Like, this is quite a lot here, maybe, you know,
So
minus
it's kind of going to be same for most instruments, but the techniques are going to be same. Like you look at the sharp colors and then peak it and see if you like it. If you don't, the opposite. But what we learn is the 100 to 400 hertz range, like certain profiling that guitars, acoustic guitars would have.
And usually the problems are in the low mid region, just around about here, between about 100 and about 400. Frequencies that I hear all the time that are problems are usually about 120 hertz, 220 hertz, and usually about 300 to 350 hertz. Like, those are usually really big problem areas in small sort of untreated home studios. You can also get problems with the high end. Sometimes at around about 7 or 8K there can be like sort of like a ringing sort of sound depending on your room size, but usually that won't detract too much from what's going on, and it's usually those low mid areas that are the problem. I'm going to turn those effects off, and now that we're a little bit more tuned into those frequencies, I'm just going to play you this one.
Suddenly got this idea before, like, this is a short video, we're almost at the end, but like I want to speak about it, which is like this whole recording process. Like, it's true that I need to learn production, but I also need to learn some important recording process. When I'm doing a whole song, I was thinking guitar, right? Acoustic guitar. I have an acoustic guitar, but I'm not that good a player. I was having trouble with playing it. It seems like I should have some sort of a plug-in way to play it, then I get a better sound. But I have a mic, maybe I'll try. But what if I get a friend to play a guitar, and then I take a recording of that, and then I bring in my piano, keyboard. Then I have to kind of play it on top of that, because or else they won't be on sync. And then what if then I figure out, oh, I think I should change some bit in the piano. But then I have to bring my friend back again if I want the new tempo, right? So what if there's a way to do this sort of mixing tempo fixes, you know? Like, what if the tempo could be adjusted? What if there's a plugin that would understand the tempo at which you're playing something, like the change in the tempo, and then it matches with another sound which is probably in a different tempo. You know what I mean? So maybe there's something like that. So I'm gonna just quickly research so that I don't forget. What is this video about? This is how to. Okay, I will get to that video in a moment. I mean, I need to do some cleanup here because there's a lot of things. Like, I don't need the Ubuntu help anymore for OBS since it's fixed. And then this was the sound. This was the page. It's good to have it open. This is the drive. We don't need that anymore. Full song, no need. Yeah, I think this is good enough. Now I can go search here. All right, a bit of cleanup there. It's good to have a clean clean sheet. I've got some messages to check. I'll check that in a moment from my phone, not from the screen. Okay, what was it? Yeah, tempo fix. FL Studio. I hope that's not gonna. Google's not thinking it's fix you. How to automate tempo and change timings. How to fix tracks with unsteady tempo in FL. One more. Oh, so like recording books. A little bit of interruption there. I'm sorry about that. I am back. I'm gonna write 206 because this probably needs some editing. 206. This is what's gonna cause me the trouble. Was it 204? I don't know. Interruption. I'm just gonna go through the audio and see if there's something that really needs the cut, and then publish it. Okay. Going back to this tempo fix. How do I speed up tempo? FL Studio pitch or tempo problems? Change tempo of whole project. Tempo fix. Different instruments. FL Studio. Or tempo sync. I don't know. How about you write tempo sync? Different instruments. Sync samples. How to sync samples to project tempo. I'm just gonna quickly see a bit of it and see if I.
If you're just starting out with FL Studio, you probably know that you can easily drag and drop samples into the playlist. However, they will not always be in the correct tempo. Samples can generally be placed into two categories. First, there's the static samples, like kicks, claps, hats, and so on. Because these kinds of samples are static one-shots, the tempo doesn't really matter. The other kind is the rhythmic ones. This could be a drum loop or a vocal or a guitar part, for example. Because they contain a groove, they will have to be synchronized to the project. The first thing I'm going to do is drag a kick into the project and make it a typical 4-to-the-floor pattern, so we have something to relate to. I'll set the project tempo to 128 BPM. Now let's find a drum loop and import it into the project as well. I will deliberately choose one that has a different tempo to make sure that it will be out of sync. You can clearly hear that they are not in sync. One kick hits before the other, and you can also see it at the end here. There is a distinct gap. There's a few ways to deal with this. If you left-click on the sample's upper left corner, a menu will appear. What's interesting for us in this example are the Detect Tempo and Fit Tempo options seen here. If you click the Detect Tempo, it will attempt to figure out the tempo and display the detected tempo to you. You'll get a few options here, as you can see. Options seen here. If you click the Detect Tempo and Fit on the sample's upper left corner, a menu will appear. What's interesting for us in this example are the Detect Tempo and Fit Tempo options seen here. If you click the Detect Tempo, it will attempt to figure out the tempo and display the detected tempo to you. You'll get a few options here, as you can see. I recommend you go with the 100 to 200 for the most part, unless you have a 60 BPM project or something like that. Just choose what seems right based on your project tempo. It has now detected the tempo. You can now choose to use this tempo or cancel. It doesn't always work 100%. Sometimes it may detect a 130 BPM sample as 129.975. In cases like that, it's clear that the right tempo is probably supposed to be 130. Next, let's explore the Fit to Tempo option. Left-click on the upper left corner again and choose Fit to Tempo this time. The same menu will appear. Sometimes a sample's BPM will be embedded in the sample itself. In that case, it will say Embedded behind the tempo here. In that case, just click on the button and you're done. But this sample doesn't have this information embedded. Instead, it's guessing that the sample is 130 BPM, which is actually right. As long as we know that, we could just click the button and be done. But it won't always be right, so let's continue. Below, we have the Detection BPM range buttons. Below that again, we have the Type in BPM and Type in Beat buttons. If you know for sure what the tempo is, you can click these buttons and type in the BPM manually. For the sake of this tutorial, I'll choose to run one of the detection algorithms, so I'll click the 100 to 200 button again. As you can hear, it's now in the right tempo. Both kicks are synchronized. Let's try this again with a guitar sample. I'll deliberately choose a sample that has the wrong tempo. A lot of times, especially in high-quality sample packs, everything is usually labeled very well. Samples will typically contain both the key and the tempo in the description of the sample, or the tempo will be embedded in the file itself. That's not always the case though, so let's continue. Again, we can clearly hear that this does not sound right at all. The guitar is way too fast. So let's left-click on the upper left corner of the guitar sample and do the same thing as we did last time. Now it's in perfect sync. The last thing I want to show you is how to do this manually. This is especially useful for vocals and other samples that have a more dynamic tempo that change over time. Some parts of the sample may be in sync while others are not. I'll delete the guitar loop and import another one. If I grab the end of the clip and drag, it will just shorten it. In order to manually stretch the sample, we need to click this little button up here. This will enable stretch mode. Now any audio sample you drag will be stretched instead. It didn't snap perfectly, so I'll press the Alt key on the keyboard while I drag, and this will enable fine-tuning. You can imagine how useful it can be to manually stretch. For example, if you want to do a remix and the tempo of the vocals varies a lot, FL Studio doesn't have audio warping the way Ableton does, but you can chop up the sample and manually stretch it instead to achieve the same thing. Don't forget to turn off audio stretching when you're done. This button is very small, so it's easy to forget. Last but not least, I want to quickly show you a few important settings in the sampler. Double-click on the sample to bring up the sampler. Because the sample is stretched, you'll notice that the time setting has been altered due to our stretching. You should pay attention to the setting here where it says Mode. There are a few different stretching algorithms available to you. They all affect the sound in different ways. The default setting is Resample. This means that as you make a sample shorter or longer, the pitch will increase or decrease. This is not always desirable. To avoid this, we can choose one of the stretching algorithms to maintain the pitch of our sample, even if it's stretched like so. This is especially useful for vocals and instruments like the guitar we just experimented with. If you want to be able to adjust the tempo of your entire project without having to adjust every single sample, once you've gotten everything synced up, you can go to Tools, Macros, and select Switch Real-Time Stretching for all audio clips. You can now adjust the global tempo and everything will stay in sync. You can now adjust the switch and everything synced up. You can go to Tools, Macros, and select Switch Real-Time Stretching for all audio clips. You can now adjust the global tempo and everything will stay in sync. There you go. Now you know how to get samples in sync with your projects. Speaking of samples, I recommend you check out my video on how to organize samples in FL Studio. This video will teach you how to work smarter and faster when it comes to samples. It's a great workflow tip that's guaranteed to save you a lot of time in the long run. You can find the link to the video in the description below.
Okay, so it's interesting. It was a very good educative tempo sync thing. I think this will help me
That's it.
in the recording process when I'm also the mixing process mainly, because you might have different tempo ones. It's very rudimentary issues like tempo off sync, but yeah, seems like maybe I have to purchase something. But yet again, thanks to Firewalk, I should note down all these so I don't get into any copyright issues. But yeah, thanks to Firewalk Firewalk's YouTube channel, I've learned the whole tempo sync thing, and I hope I'll be able to remember these steps, tools, macros. Going back, so another timestamp, it's going to be 2:40, 2:17 now. I'm back to guitar compression 2. I'm going to go for a lunch break in a moment as soon as I'm done with this video.
More time, just the unedited and the edited stems, to see whether you can really sort of hone in on those differences now. So let's just hear this. Is just such nice guitar to listen to, isn't it? Basically, it just lets that guitar shine, and someone might want that to still sound thicker and sound like less bright, and if they want to, they can just add an EQ and boost some of those frequencies back, cut the high end. But whatever they do, it's just in a much better position to make those decisions, because when it was all boxy and boomy, it was just competing with everything, and you didn't really have the clarity there. Hopefully this technique helps you out, and as with any technique, sometimes less is more. Sometimes you'll have something that doesn't need this on it. Maybe your guitar recording is already perfect, so just be careful. So just keep checking before and after to make sure that you haven't...
So as a conclusion, like EQ, like what we discovered is for guitar, 100 to 200, 100 to 400 hertz is a very important space where there will be such certain sounds you want to tone down, so you should first put it up really high, and then so first you should really put it up high, and then check to see if it's really like causing an issue, and then you can do the opposite, put it down. It's called subtractive EQ, and obviously you want to do a low end cut, because those ruffling bottom sound, if there's sound below a certain level, you don't really need them, right? Just having a little bit of it suddenly means it's sort of not outside noise, but it's noise you don't really want. I'm going to take a lunch break now at 2:19.